Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. This is my first video, and today we're diving into a really disturbing Reddit story. If you enjoy it, don't forget to like and subscribe. Now, let's get into it. And then, I looked up. I'm a police officer in the southern US, in a suburban department of about 100 sworn officers. I work in a college town. I've been on about 10 years now, made sergeant 4 years ago. But at the time of this story, I was just 2 years on, working night shift patrol. I've been lucky that not a lot has affected me, mentally anyway, during my career. I don't have kids. That's how it gets to you usually. You can build all the mental walls you want, but when you have an emotional connection with your kids and see something happening to kids, the walls mean nothing. Anyway, this one stuck with me, still makes my hair stand on end, especially when it rains. It was September, just after midnight. I get put on a call of shots fired. Now, normally these calls turn out to be either fireworks or perhaps a car backfiring, but mostly fireworks. So, unless we get multiple calls on it, or a confirmed gunman or someone confirmed wounded, we just send one unit. That night, it was me. The shots fired was reported around a college football stadium. This was during football season. So there were a bunch of really big white tents set up all around the parking lots for tailgaters. I notified dispatch that I was on scene and started rolling through the parking lots, casting my spotlight here and there. It was raining, pretty heavily and hard to see. About halfway through the lots, my spotlight illuminated the silhouette of a man sitting in a folding chair under one of those big tents. I pulled closer and lit him up and notified dispatch that I was out with one in the parking lot. His back was to me. He appeared to be hunched forward, as if his elbows were on his knees and his head leaning forward. I walked towards him and started calling out to him. Can't remember exactly what I said, but something like, "Hey man, you okay? You heard anything strange? Can you come talk to me?" He didn't move or answer. As I drew closer, I lit him up with my flashlight. I then noticed the outline of a shotgun on the pavement next to him. Combined with him not answering and the nature of the call, it was enough for me to break leather and have dispatch hold the channel. I kept calling to him as I approached, asking him to show me his hands, etc. 30 feet, 20 feet, 10 feet. My handgun Glock Model 22 has a Streamlight TLR-1 light on it, so I had him lit up. 6 feet, under the tent with him. 5 feet, 4 feet. I close on him. Come around to the front of him. Shotgun suicides are difficult. Often, if they put the barrel under their chin, the blast from the barrel will blow the gun out from under their chin before the shot ever hits them. There was a guy in my hometown that succeeded in a shotgun suicide only because he did it in front of a pond. Put the barrel under his chin, pulled the trigger, only managed to blow his face off. Coroner said he probably ran around screaming through the hole that used to be his mouth before he drowned in the pond. This guy succeeded. Blew his head clean off. You do this job long enough, you notice funny little details. His elbows were indeed resting on his knees. It was as though he blew his head off, set the shotgun on the ground next to him, and then leaned forward and rested his elbows on his knees to think about what he'd done. About that time, I noticed that, even though I was under the tent with him, it felt like it was still raining. And then, I looked up. The disappearance of my neighbor. This story happened a few years ago, maybe around the years of 2019, in between 2022, so pretty recently. But yet, I still can't remember much details, so I'll try to explain it to my best of my capabilities. I used to live in this old apartment building for a really long time. Ever since I was born. I lived there for quite a while, switching in and out of floors every few years. Once I got to the 5th floor, everything was normal. I got to know some neighbors except for one. From what I can remember, this neighbor, I had lived around 3 doors away, so you'd expect me to see him a lot. Turns out, I never saw this guy. He never left or entered his house. I never thought about him, because he was so private. From what I knew, he was most likely Albanian, or maybe some Middle Eastern folk from what I've heard. The area I lived in was not so diverse. mainly consisting of Hispanics and Albanians, and some other Muslim people. The area I lived in is heavily crowded and influenced with gang life. Mainly the Hispanics. The Albanians did have some part in the gang life too, though. I remember having to pick up a pizza around a block away from my facility. There was this group of Albanians testing out tasers that they had for some reason. I don't know. They had guns and basically anything you'd expect from a gang. Vapes, firearms, weed, drugs, etc. I'd always see them in the stores around my area. Stores that were always heavily empty. The only people you usually see to expect in these stores were maybe gang members, with maybe a 1 to 6 actual customers at times. This may seem irrelevant, but later on in the story, this section will start to make sense to include. Then came the night that changed everything. I was about to get ready to take out the garbage, while my family is in the couch watching television. As I'm looking for the trash, my mom told me to take out. We hear sirens out the window, and ambulances. We go out to the balcony, all of us, which gave us a bigger view of most of the commotion. This is the part where it gets a little confusing, but I'll try to explain it as best as I can. In between of the time of the police coming outside of the building, to my family looking out the balcony, someone was entering the elevator of the facility, most likely wounded, and had gone to the 5th floor in one of the apartments. Now, specifically my neighbor's apartment, the one I'd never seen. The guy that was also private and mysterious for some unknown reason. Up to this point, I didn't even know if it was him. But it was most likely since, to my knowledge, he lived with nobody. Shortly after, the police came into the floor and were banging on his door, eventually letting themselves in. And from that point, that's all I know. But there was an officer on standby by his door for about a week. I'd see this officer every day of this week when I was going to school. There were times when he would leave, though mainly through the night. Ever since then, there had been no updates regarding what happened to my neighbor, or even what happened in general. There was blood on the elevator floor, and I know this because my mom noticed it when she was investigating once everything had settled down. I still wonder what happened to that neighbor, but I do have a theory. My theory is that he was maybe involved with the gang activity in the area and someone shot him, near or in the facility. Most likely, I'll never know what happened to him, but I'll still think about it. What do you guys think happened to him? Because to my knowledge, I guess I'll never know. Weird place. Okay, so this was a long time ago, and I never thought of writing this all down, so here we go, I guess. I grew up in a low-income area in London early 90s. It was tough, but we had fun. Me and my friends used to get up to mischief a lot. One of our preferred ways to pass the time was to go to the golfy, albeit that just meant climbing a wall that separated our neighborhood from a golf course and collect lost golf balls. I don't know why we did it, but hey, we were young. And the fluorescent yellow balls were kind of cool to us. Anyhow, during one summer break from school, I went out and met up with my best friend. Nobody else was around that day, which was weird, because usually the neighborhood was teeming with our friend group. I know that seems trivial, but the whole neighborhood was like unusually quiet. Strange vibe, because I remember it was a perfect day. We wandered around talking for a while, and inevitably got bored, and he suggested a trip to the golfy to see if we could find any balls. So off we went on the short walk. We got there after a short walk. It wasn't far, but I remember that we just couldn't find anyone around. I don't know. It was bizarre to say the least. Like we could hear normal neighborhood noises, as you would expect, but we just never encountered anyone. I remember we commented on it being strange, and actually surmised that maybe all our friends had the same idea as us, and would be at the golfy waiting for us. Not unusual, given none of us had phones, and we would just randomly meet in a few places, most of which we had already been past at this point. So, we arrived at the wall that we usually scrambled over to get to the golfy. He hopped up before me and sat astride it to pull me up. Once we were both up, we looked at each other perplexed. I genuinely remember to this day the confusion in his face. We looked over at the place we had been hundreds of times before, and it was different. Instead of a small wooded area that gave onto the golf course, It was a huge paved area full of rows of greenhouses and odd-looking square areas that looked like they were meant for plants. These greenhouses were not new though. Matter of fact, they looked abandoned, old, and not taken care of. Most of them had plastic sheeting over the sides where the glass used to be, and they were flapping gently in the summer breeze. The squared areas had weeds and the sort growing out of them. Likewise, the paving slabs that made up the floor. We sat there for a while, watching. We had no clue what to make of it all. Obviously, this was too good to be true in our minds, and once the initial surprise wore off, curiosity set in. We both hopped down and began to explore the place. I know it sounds banal, but the whole area was just off, like it just didn't seem normal. I can't explain it to this day, but we were sticking close to each other, even though we were laughing and kidding as we went further in. We looked in the greenhouses, and they were just full of run-down equipment of some sort and overgrown with weeds and plants. After about 20 minutes of exploration, I remember we stopped and looked around kind of in disbelief at how big this whole area was. We hadn't changed direction, and now in the middle of all of it could neither see the neighborhood nor the golf course. This is when it got really fucked. As we were stood there, my friend looked at me and said, "Can you hear that?" The look on his face was dead serious, and I stood still listening. "What?" I asked him back. He just put his finger to his lips and listened more. Then I heard it, like a really low hum. Like the type a high voltage of electricity makes. It's something between a hum and a buzz. As we stood there, it got louder and louder, as if it was getting closer, but not from any particular direction, from all around us. We started a brisk walk back to where we came. The buzz kept getting louder until we panicked and started to run. As we ran, and I mean full sprint through these weird constructions, we started hearing something behind us. I can't explain it. Almost a mechanical noise, like not a human or animal. The plastic sheeting and the way the place was laid out made it impossible to see anything more than 10-15 so we never saw what it was, but it was there, right behind us. We must have ran hard for 3, maybe 4 minutes in pure adrenaline. And I remember getting to that wall completely empty and using the last bit of energy I had left to clamber over it. Once over it, both of us threw up. Probably from the fact we just sprinted so hard for so long. We made our way back through the neighborhood and everything seemed normal again. People, cars, activity, etc. was business as usual. The fucked up part is, once we explained what had happened to our friend group, they obviously all wanted to go see what we had found and what had chased us. Understandably, because it sounded insane. The next day, a whole group of us, maybe 10-12s, went back down to see the place. It wasn't there, and I swear we went up and down that wall for an hour looking for it. It just wasn't there. There is no way it was in some other place. We only used that wall to get there, and given the sheer size of that area, even if we were off by 100-200 meter, we would have seen it. Nothing. Literally nothing. Me and my friend occasionally spoke about it, like, "Hey, remember that day?" But never really more than that. Then, I guess life happened, and we went our different ways. Hell, maybe he'll read this and recognize the story. Either way, only 2 of us knew about it until now. Fucking weird place. None of us can explain this experience. The events of this story are true. I don't know if it was a glitch, a time slip, but it still freaks me out. One time, when I was around 9, I was sitting in the back seat of my sister's Jeep Cherokee, along with my cousin. She's also the same age as me. My sister was driving, and my other cousin around the same age as her, like 17-ish, was in the passenger seat. My sister always took me with her to run errands or trips to the mall. On this day, my younger cousin was at my house, and we were playing in the backyard, till my sister just had us tag along. Anyway, we're driving on the freeway, and we see a carnival with rides. The zipper, that crazy unsafe ride with the cages that spin, could be seen, as well as the Ferris wheel. Me and my cousin were begging my sister to please take us. She said no, and made that same exit. It was the same exact exit to head right on some main road. The carnival was situated to the left. On the ramp, we were on the red light. And my sister said she promised we'll go after she returned this shirt or something. and my older cousin needed to buy these shoes on sale. This was before smartphones and stuff, like late 90s. Besides myself, everyone in family knew that my sister was always amazing with directions. She even told us she knew exactly where to park too. So we didn't have to walk far or deal with the traffic. I specifically remember that when walking into the mall, we could sense a very faint smell of the carnival elephant ears, corn dogs, and stuff. We go into the mall for like no more than a half hour, and walking to my sister's truck. Me and my younger cousin were so happy and excited. All of a sudden, I remember noticing I didn't smell the carnival anymore. Was probably just my excitement, so I didn't even say anything. We get in the car and make our way around the loopy parking lots and inner streets to finally get onto the same road we came on, which also takes you to the freeway. The second we turned, there was nothing. Nothing but a continuing road on both ends of the freeway exits. No large gates blocking traffic. No large wires on the ground. No distant sounds of children screaming and laughing on the rides. No scent of elephant ears. I'll never forget us all just staring at the blank road. My older cousin in the front seat says, "Boozies, did they press a button?" And the whole carnival just went underground or disappeared. Nobody laughed. We all thought the same thing. My sister then put her signal on, turning left on the ramp which was originally blocked a half hour before, and we headed home. There's no way the carnival shut down, packed, and vanished that quickly. Even if they were, the rides were going. Kids were yelling, laughing. It was all lively. So even if they started to close down that same instant, it would be impossible to disassemble the Ferris wheel, all the rides, let alone the barricades to block incoming traffic or the wires, cones. Till this day, we all remember the story in perfect detail. None of us can ever explain how this was possible. By far, one of the weirdest things I have ever experienced. The man who watched us sleep. I'm from Sri Lanka. I am 26 years old and I'm a Buddhist. Now, and this is my first time sharing something online, especially a story like this. It's about the creepiest thing that's ever happened to me, back when I was in high school. I've wanted to write it down for years, but every time I tried, something got in the way. Well, here it goes. This happened when I was in grade 10 or 11. My younger brother and I shared a bed back then. He was in grade 6 or 7. Before I get into it, let me paint the picture. Our room faced the main Colombo Candy Road. The bed was shoved into a corner, headboard against the wall. At the foot of the bed, there was a tiny gap, maybe 2 feet, between us and a wardrobe pressed tight against the wall. On the other side was the door to the room. Right by the door sat an old iron table with one short leg. So if you bumped it, it'd wobble and make a loud dada sound because it couldn't stay steady. Okay, here's where it starts. That night, my brother and I climbed into bed around 9:30 or 10. I couldn't sleep. It was hot and sticky, and I was restless. My brother, though, seemed to nod off fast. Through the curtain on our door, I could see the living room light still glowing. About 30 minutes after we got in bed, my mom, dad, and sisters turned off the lights and went to sleep too. I shut my eyes, but sleep wouldn't come. The heat, the sweat. It was brutal. I tried so hard to doze off, but no. Hours dragged by, maybe 2 or 3, and I was still awake. By then, the road outside was completely quiet. Not a single car passing. Then, out of the blue, I heard it. Footsteps inside the house. Slow, steady steps. Like someone in shoes walking on the tiled floor coming from the living room toward our room. No hurry, just calm and getting louder, closer. My heart pounded. The sound stopped right at our door. I kept my eyes squeezed shut, too terrified to look, and pulled the sheet over my head like it'd protect me. For a bit, it was dead silent. Then, all of a sudden, the table in our room went dadas, like something bumped it. Now I knew. Someone was there. Forget the heat. I was sweating from pure fear, shaking under the sheet. I wanted to peek, but I was petrified. Finally, I couldn't stand it. Acting like I was asleep, I slid the sheet down and cracked my eyes open just a bit. I couldn't believe it. A man was sitting on the table. He looked like he was dressed for a job interview. Long pants, a tucked-in long-sleeve shirt. His hair was kinda long, brushing his shoulders. With my eyes half open, I couldn't make out his face clearly, but there he was. One leg up on a chair, the other on the floor, hand on his hip, staring at our bed. I wanted to yell, but my voice was gone. I tried over and over. Nothing came out. I couldn't even turn to my brother. My body felt like a rock. Panicking, the first shut my eyes again and yanked the sheet back over my head. I was trembling now, scared out of my mind. Minutes passed, maybe more, and I didn't hear a sound. My brother shifted in his sleep next to me, but that was it. I had to check again. Still pretending to be out cold, I eased the sheet down and peeked at the table. He was gone. I felt a flicker of relief, but then thought, where'd he go? I lowered the sheet more and glanced at the wardrobe by our feet. There he was, standing right at the edge of the bed, looking down at us. Tall, maybe 6 feet, dressed sharp like before. The wardrobe was 6 feet too, and he matched its height perfectly. Sweat drenched me, but I felt ice cold, stuck in place. My brother kept tossing around, clueless. I couldn't even nudge him. My arm wouldn't move. Desperate, I squeezed my eyes shut again, thinking, whatever happens, let it be. After a while, I forced myself to look. I tilted my head down, cracked my eyes, and checked the foot of the bed. He wasn't there. No sounds anywhere. I glanced at the table. Empty. My heart lightened a bit. Whoever he was, he's gone, I thought. Feeling safer, I fixed my pillow and looked up. That's when I saw something I'll never forget, ever. Typing this now, my hands are shaking. My ears feel frozen. I told you our bed was right against the wall, with maybe an inch of space behind it. Nobody could fit there. But when I looked up, there he was. The same long-haired guy, perched on the headboard, leaning over me. His face so close to mine, there couldn't have been more than a foot between us. That's all I remember. I think I blacked out. Next thing I knew, it was morning. My brother wasn't beside me. Still in bed, I tried to figure it out. What happened last night? Dream or real? I was dead sure it was real, but I tried telling myself it was a nightmare to calm down. My head throbbed, and I felt feverish. Groggy, I stumbled out of bed and into the living room. It was empty, but I heard my mom and brother chatting in the kitchen. I went to tell my mom what I'd seen, still half convincing myself it was fake. But what I heard in there turned my shaky fever into full-blown chills. My brother was telling my mom, Amma, last night some guy came into our room. He was by the table first. Then he went over to Aya's Aya, means elder brother in my language side, and leaned right over his face. I shut my eyes. I was terrified. When I looked again, he was by the wardrobe. I turned away, too scared to scream, though I tried. Later, the first peeked, and he was on the bed, leaning over Aya's face, staring at him. I clamped my eyes shut and must have passed out. For a whole month after, we played Buddhist Pirith chants. It's like Christian prayers in our room nonstop. Nothing weird happened again. But, get this, before that night, my older sister had told us something too. She said one afternoon while napping, someone grabbed her hair and pulled her off the bed, telling her to get down. We laughed, thinking she was joking. After this, though, we weren't so sure. Some might believe this is true. Others might say it's nonsense. Up to you. But I've still got questions that haunt me. How did he lean over me like that without falling? How could anyone fit in that tiny space behind the bed? What was that? For a long time after, I was terrified to sleep. Every time I climbed into bed, I'd lie there, heart racing, scared I'd see that man again, staring down at me in the dark. That's it for today's story. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more. See you in the next one.